Okay, so hello.
Hello.
Brilliant premieres. Well, let's just work down the list and let everyone here. So you just introduce yourselves and the role you had in your film.
So my name's Charles Sharman-Cox, and I wrote and directed the film in Absentia. And I brought my dear friend, one of my oldest friends, David Streams, came in and played the lead actor in it for me.
Yeah, so my name's David Streams, and so Charles and I have worked together a lot over the years, but this was quite a special film actually, wasn't it? It was very close to our hearts. Yeah.
And same question to...
Yeah, so my name's Jonathan Williams. I'm the writer-director of Sharks in Colwyn Bay.
Okay, so if I could speak about In Absentia for a second, it was a fantastic film. Where did the inspiration first come from? For obviously it's...
Okay, my family, I was living with someone with dementia. It's going to sound like a sob story now, but my wife became, my father-in-law and his wife, my mother-in-law, both suffered, and my wife had to go and become a full-time carer for them. So we actually didn't live together for 4 years. Sounds ridiculous, but she was literally looking after them. And so I wanted to make a film using that feeling, you know, of dementia. And but I also didn't want it to be just a negative aspect of dementia. I mean, I had to live without my wife for 4 years, but I just thought it's equally as dreadful for the people surrounded by the people with dementia, if that makes sense. So
everyone is affected. If you know someone, everyone around that person ends up being affected.
And it seems to be spreading. It seems to be growing like wildfire. More and more people with dementia. I mean, even the other film that we saw today. The Interpreter, you know, yet again dealing with that issue. But yeah, so that's why I made it. So I wanted to try and have a positive aspect about it, that it's not so bad. It's not as bad for the person suffering as it is for the people around them. And you might want to talk about that, Gary.
Yeah. So originally, many years ago, I had a very close friend, two actually, Gary Rainsford and Don Hill. And they used to write together. Sadly, they both passed away in the same year. Gary was only 40-something, Don was 80-something. But they wrote a script which was a very sort of vague, familiar story to the script that Charles has written. So I was looking through stuff, Charles was looking for something to make. And I said, what about Gary and Don's script? So Charles had a look at it and completely changed it, but it's kept the essence of it, which was about the guy. I won't say, in case anyone's not seen it yet. It's about the guy who is basically the character that I play, reminiscing about something.
So is that sort of the start of how you ended up working on this project?
Yes.
So you've been quite involved from the start, or
yeah.
was it sort of later in that you decided, or it got decided that you were going to play the main actor?
I think we decided a bit later on, but I can't remember.
Well,
now.
many years ago, I used to teach drama at a drama college where David was a student, and that's how we kind of met. Yeah. And one of the classes that I gave him, or I set the class, I should say, was to play old. And he was 17 at the time, I think. And I've never forgotten, he played such... I thought, he's a brilliant old man. He's 17, how can he do it? And I never forgot that. And then years later, when we decided to make the film, I thought, can I get to play it? And he's too young. He's too young to play the part.
Far too young.
Far too young. But,
I can show you my rail card if you like, to prove I am over 60. Yeah.
But I'd remembered David had played this old man as a 17-year-old and thinking how brilliant he was in the class. So I said, you can do this, David, and he did. I thought he was a magnificent old man.
It was an amazing performance.
Thank you very much. But what I love about the film is Charles has always been meticulous with detail and everything, and it's part of it's set in the 1940s. During the end of the Second World War, and again the attention to detail I think is fantastic, and the other actors as well I just think were just lovely and brilliant. And yeah. Speaking
of from more of a filmmaking aspect, do you find it more difficult to film things that are supposed to be period accurate, or how hard is it to make things?
It's not difficult doing that sort of work, but what is difficult is the sets, the location, the costumes, getting all that right. Where I was really lucky, where we filmed it was in an old garrison town, Shoeburyness, on the mouth of the River Thames, and although it's a defunct garrison now, but they converted it completely into housing. But one of the stipulations on the lease was, when they sold the land off, was that the owners of the houses, the new houses, mustn't change anything. They mustn't change the colour of the front door. That's got to stay, army green, and there were no yellow lines were allowed to be put into on the streets. Yeah, even though it was a public highway.
It was frozen in time.
And so it was frozen in time. So
Perfect location.
It was the perfect.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
without that location, I probably wouldn't have got
It would have
made
been
because it had
difficult,
been too expensive
Yeah.
to
I feel
find.
like speaking to some of the other filmmakers, a few of them had challenges finding locations, especially for things around that time period. And if we just circle back, do you feel like being so close to the story for such a long time really allowed you to sort of make it seem as real as possible? Because it's something that's the themes are definitely discussed a lot in film, but sometimes it feels like they're done sort of distastefully and not true, if that makes sense. Sometimes, like, how do you think being so close made it easier, or do you think it made it harder to?
No, I could divorce myself from the fact. I mean, once the closeness came in the writing, you get the writing done, you get the script right. You don't even start thinking. Well, I don't even start thinking about how we're going to film it, how we're going to do anything with it until I've got the script right. Because unless the script's right, you haven't got a film. And then, so I went through the emotional side of it was in the writing. And once we got to now we're going to make a film, then you just, well, I just divorce myself from that, and then it's it's technical as well as artistic, but it's, you've just got to get the work done, and then you're just, and the actors, the cast don't need to know about my background to be able to perform it. So it then became another job, for want of a better word, yeah.
Do you think that makes it easier to get it sort of done in a way? Like to finish?
I think if I'm gonna let the emotion overtake what I'm doing, then that's just getting in the way of getting something done. I mean,
to be honest, from an acting point of view, playing a part like that could be incredibly emotional and everything else. And you play the moment, but of course you've got a camera, you've got somebody should say, okay, cut, let's do that again. Make sure next time do this, do that, do that. So you've got all this going through your mind. But so like as a director, it would be hard for you to sit there crying all the way through, wouldn't it? And it's not a sad story, is it?
No, it's not.
And I know I had a friend of mine whose husband had dementia. He couldn't remember us from one day to the next. Literally, we'd go, "Oh, hello, David. Hello, John," or whatever. And he'd go, "Oh, hello, come in." Didn't know us at all. "I'll show you where the toilet is." "No, it's all right. We know where the toilet is." And a friend of mine set the burglar alarm off by mistake. And his wife had gone out and said, "Do you mind looking after him for a couple of hours? Is that all right?" I went, "Yeah, fine." Anyway, where? Police phone. They say, "We need to talk to the owner of the house." And I said, "I'm sorry, he's got dementia." They said, "No, we have to talk to him." I said, "Oh, okay." So he comes out going, "Oh, terrible noise. What's that?" I said, "It's the burglar alarm." And he goes "Terrible noise." Walks up to the keypad for the alarm and goes, "Dip, dip, 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 dip. Where? Oh, that's better." So he remembered that, but literally couldn't remember us from one day to the next. But it's a hard thing, and as you say, it's harder for the people around than the person that's actually suffering from it.
No, it's definitely a delicate topic, and I feel like you did it extremely well. I feel like
Thank you.
It was a great film.
Oh,
So I feel like I've left you out a little
That's
bit.
all right.
no,
Colwyn, my turn.
Yeah. So just give us a brief sort of just a story, like the story of like how that came to be. Sharks of Holby Bay?
Colwyn Bay.
I'm so sorry.
It came about, everything kind of grew outwards from the character, where I just initially just had this, I was just like brainstorming whatever, and then I just had this picture of this guy, this kind of like bloke wearing Hawaiian shirts or whatever, but living in the UK, and living in a bit of his own bubble, and everything grew out from that. Oh, what kind of work does this guy do? Oh, maybe he runs like a restaurant type of thing that he thinks is exotic, but it's not too exotic, and so on. And then there were a lot of other places where inspiration came from. Like I'd went and lived in Spain very briefly when I was very, very little, and I came back when I was still quite young, and I had this kind of like nostalgic sort of grumpiness, I suppose, being like, oh, I just want to like be back there. And I thought, what if someone was like 60 and they still had that very childish attitude? And then of course the other kind of major bit of inspiration was just like the huge rise in loan shark activity basically since 2020. since COVID and like the cost of living crisis and fuel bills and everything, there's been like an absolutely massive increase in the usage of illegal moneylenders. And so that was, I suppose, like the film ended up as the kind of conflation of like all of those influences.
So where did the idea come from for him to be death by fish?
I can't remember where that specifically came from. I think like where that whole end sequence came from for me was, I feel like, you know, he has to give him a sort of ironic way out. And the idea of it being this, you know, death by the food felt like a very fitting end, considering the pressure that he was putting on Dick to completely change what the restaurant was about and go back to it being a fish and chips like his father had. And so having him be killed by the fish and chips was just like the most fitting end to him then, I suppose. But it also came from just feeling that it would be quite a fun sort of mini set piece to have all these other tapas dishes around as well. But there's just like one poisoned dish. So that was, I suppose, where the inspiration for that specifically came from, yeah.
So you mentioned briefly before we started your recently graduated London Film School.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, have you made anything since graduating? Do you feel like there's a difference between doing it for college and doing it for either work or for yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, not directed. I'm working on some things. I have some scripts going, but I've been on plenty of other shorts, yeah. And there is a difference. I suppose the main thing I've noticed is that when you go to film school, it's quite easy to get in this environment where you're kind of coddled in a way, and you have a lot of time, and you have not necessarily loads of budget, but you have enough to be quite comfortable. And then when you leave film school, a lot of people who were in that environment, you know, they make these shorts afterwards where they're spending, you know, just way too much money and way too much time in a way that I don't think is terribly practical for the kind of industry we're going into and the kind of working conditions that we're going to have to get used to in a lot of ways. So I'm putting some stuff together right now where the way I want to shoot it is a lot more lo-fi, much smaller crews, often kind of like run and gun, because the way that like film funding is in the state that it's in the UK, I feel like it's a lot of people come out of film school and they're still acting like they're in film school, and they're like, oh, we can take all the time we want for this, you know, this 10-minute film. Oh yeah, chuck like 50 grand at it or whatever. It's like, no, you can't do that. It's insane. So yeah.
Definitely, that seems like a lot of money to throw away.
Oh yeah, I mean that's an exaggeration, but.
So do you want me asking what was the budget on your film?
It was, I want to say it was like just under 20 grand, and a lot of that was so we get like 5-ish from the school, and we raised about 12.
Yeah, I saw that.
From Kickstarter, and then I ended up taking out some savings because it was meant to be a bit lower than that, and then we ended up going over budget as you do, and because just so much of it was just location. It was location and getting all of our crew to North Wales and housing everyone, and that experience really taught me in a lot of ways, like, okay, the next thing I do, I have to be a lot smarter about the way I make things, a lot more economical.
I think you don't need an insane budget to make, especially from a lot of what we've seen here. What was the budget on in Absentia?
Do you know, I can't remember, isn't it? I can't remember, isn't that awful?
£30, something like that.
Yeah, fine.
No.
Well, when I maybe 10, maybe something like that. But when I put a short film together, because there's no money to be made making short films, I think you'll agree.
Yeah. That's why it's so mad to spend so much on it.
I was thinking, actually, if I can just I was thinking, as you were saying that about low-tech filmmaking,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, when I was your age, all the digital media wasn't out there that we've got now, obviously.
Right.
So people didn't make films, they did drama. Then
Yes.
you set up drama companies, theatre companies, you performed in pubs. So what was going on when I was a kid, still wanted to make drama, but it was live. But now, because of the introduction of iPhones with 4K capability, etc., you can, everyone's suddenly a filmmaker. Yeah. And I think that's so true what you said about you can't just
rein it in a bit.
you can't
just
make a short film.
Yeah.
And then so many people are making short films, and it's kind of scary. It scares me.
Yeah, it is scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just finding a way of doing things, finding a way of operating where you don't have to spend, loads of money, where you can just go out with a DSLR and some sound equipment, and shoot something, and not get bogged down too much in the sort of film school bubble of making things.
I think you're right.
When you do leave, or like, for people who don't go to film school, like to not get caught up thinking that they have to compete with the sort of budgets and equipment and time that film school gives you, because so having been there myself, like it's really not that important not to suddenly be like, oh yeah, that was my grad film, by the way, don't go to film school. But there are ways of making short films that don't require you to just be like, okay, well, we need an Arri Alexa for this, or whatever it may be.
No, it's more about if you've got a good idea, and you've got if you can, not anyone can write a script, but you can sit down with just a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can write your script, and you can storyboard, and you can pull together your friends, and you can make something, and you definitely don't need all the equipment. So would you say it's secondary to a good idea?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you've got a really good idea, then you can go out and film it with an iPhone, or like a just like a crappy like DSLR or whatever, and people will like it. I mean, get good audio. That's everyone says this, but that's way more important than a good camera. Whatever.
That's the forgotten thing, isn't it?
People forget it.
Is just as important.
No,
I
so
did a pilot for a comedy series, and there was 2 episodes. And the first episode, great. The second one, they got a different sound guy. You couldn't even use it.
Oh no.
None of it. It was completely ruined by the sound.
Yeah.
Sound is just as important as film.
Totally.
Take that away. I don't know where the camera is.
Don't go to film school, and sound is better.
Yeah, don't go to film. No, I mean, like, go to film school for the if you can, for the chance to meet and network and make things with people. That's the important part. But plenty of people who were on Sharks in Colwyn Bay didn't go to film school. Like one of the producers of the film, Anais, I met her on another London Film School project, because she basically just kind of snuck into the school one day and found some people sitting at the canteen and said, hey, do you have any projects going? I'd love to be, a producer, a runner, whatever. And they were like, yeah, we'll take it. So, you can find ways to kind of muscle into being on projects and, make yourself invaluable to a team. And I saw that she was invaluable, so I brought her on to Sharks.
Even events like this, quite good networking as well. So I don't know how many people you got in the audience, but any questions?
The whole point about the dementia, the elements and so on, is quite interesting. As somebody stated, that it's an ongoing disease at the moment, and a lot of people are sort of like catching it, and like the gentleman said that you said something about 4 months or something, the missus was away from you, looking after the mother, or 4 years?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah,
it's a
4
long
years.
time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I had that sort of experience as well. My mother, God bless, she's 95, and she suffered from dementia at this time, and she's abroad. And I go and look after her momentary 6-7 months. My sister takes over, and then from her, my other brother takes over. So I understand the difficulties and so on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is no sort of like a cure for it, and care is the only thing you can do. But that film sort of touched on me on the dementia thing, the subject, and
but I think
I felt it.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. But I think it's also, like I say, it's not always about the person who's suffering, which of course is dreadful, but it's the people around them. So perhaps it's not always as bad. It's not always as bad for the person suffering, because they don't know that they're suffering. They're just getting on with their life, I guess. But that's all I wanted to say, really. Nothing more grand than that.
Oh.
I don't think we're going to have any other questions from the audience. I think.
Just one question.
Oh, we do.
It's a very simple one for the in Absentia. You closed the film with an overhead shot. I was wondering, first of all, from the technical side, how did you do that shot, and why?
I didn't hear
The drone shot. You saying that? How did you achieve
Okay,
that shot?
well, that's really interesting, because I had a fantastic DP on the shoot who brought all the kit with him, and he lived around the corner, and I was always going to end the shot without a drone, and had never planned to have a drone in that shot, and we'd set the scene up with David sitting with his wife from 40,
Wife,
50
daughter.
years earlier. No, we won't go there. And I said, oh, it's a great shot, and I want to get a long shot. And he said, oh, I wish I brought my drone. And I, oh, can you go and get it? And we literally just waited, and he jumped in his vehicle, and he drove home and brought the drone back, and we got the shot. So it was
a very windy day, wasn't it?
It was a really windy day, and it was really scary. He said, well, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, because it was actually blowing a gale, but he managed to get the shot of the overhead drone. But also, I did start with a drone shot, because we were filming. This is quite interesting. Well, I think it's quite interesting. We were filming, as I said, at this Shuby Barracks and the beach there. And where the beach stopped, there was a big chain link fence. And this side was MOD land, where they test bombs and that sort of thing. But it's MOD land. So I said, I want to get a shot of a drone shot coming down the River Thames, because I'm going to put the Spitfire and the Hurricane in the shot. So we're going to get it from that point of view. And then if you notice at the start, there's this what's called a boom. It was a submarine boom built in the war to stop the submarines going up the River Thames, the German submarines going up the River Thames. And I said I wanted to get a shot of the drone coming down the River Thames along the boom, and there's the soldier on the beach, pissed and drunk. And so we went out in the middle of the River Thames, took the drone up, and as we flew we got closer to the MOD land, military of defence land, the drone said, warning, you're going into a no-fly zone area.
You get shot down.
Well, no, what happened was a few years ago, someone flew a drone over an airport, like I think Heathrow or something, and it shut everything down. So they brought out technology to stop people flying and having no zone flight. Well, I didn't know that. so we didn't get the shot coming down the boom, but we did still have a little bit of it coming at the very beginning. And it was nice that he could go and get the drone at the end of the shoot, and so we started and finished with a drone shot.
So luckily I was wearing a beret, so you couldn't see my bald patch.
Okay, so I think that's all that. Yeah, sort of all the time we have for this Q&A. It's brilliant films.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
This film's brilliant.
Yeah, both the films are brilliant. All the films.
All
are
Here comes a really good film, The Translator. Nearly got it wrong. No, it's great. Translator. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Good questions. Thank you.
This way.